Good afternoon, everyone. As we struggle with complicated challenges in foreign policy around the world, I think it's very important that we not lose sight of some of the lessons that we've learned in Iraq and Afghanistan that our country can draw upon in the future. When Senator Webb and I arrived in the Senate, he and I quickly found some common ground that we wanted to work on together, and that was the issue of wartime contracting. It was 70 years ago this year that Senator Harry Truman reported on the Truman Committee, which the work of that committee had been all about inappropriate war profiteering during World War II. 70 years later, Senator Webb and I are introducing legislation to try to codify some of the work of the War Contracting Commission. He and I worked on this legislation the first year we arrived in the Senate. We were able to pass this legislation the first year we arrived in the Senate. And the War Contracting Commission began its work in February of 2009, basically trying to emulate in some important ways the work of the Truman Committee many years ago. In August of 2011, the Commission issued its final report. And we had testimony from the Commission in various places in Congress, including work in both the Armed Services Committee and in my subcommittee on contracting oversight. Since that period of time, Senator Webb and I have been working on this legislation to try to actually implement many of the suggestions of the Commission. And this legislation does just that. Understanding that contracting is essential in contingencies and that many contractors are doing not only their duty, but doing it well. We also understood that there was a lack of oversight, there was a lack of accountability, there was rampant waste and fraud and abuse. In fact, it was estimated by the War Contracting Commission that somewhere, they estimated around $60 billion worth of money that was not properly utilized and was lost either to waste, fraud, or abuse during the contingency in Iraq. So we want to elevate oversight responsibility. We want to require the government to identify how it's going to pay for military operations overseas. We want to improve the contracting process through greater transparency, competition, professional education, and we want to institute additional provisions for contractor accountability. What we don't want to do is add a lot of bureaucracies, add a lot of paperwork, add a lot of complication to a process that is already cumbersome. And we believe that this legislation strikes the right balance. I know I am very grateful to the members of the War Contracting Commission for their service. Now our job is to make sure that they don't become one more report on a shelf, to gather dust, and to have a book spine that is never cracked. We want to make sure that the report that they have issued works its way into the culture and fabric of the Pentagon, of our military, and of the people at the State Department, so that we know that the money this country spends on protecting our national security is being spent carefully and cautiously, especially when it comes to contracting. I mean, it kind of comes under the category that we found repeatedly that we were giving performance bonuses to some of the contractors that weren't performing very well. I have no problem with giving performance bonuses to contractors who are executing their responsibilities very well, and there are many that have. But what we found was that just the culture was everybody got a performance bonus, no matter what happened. I mean, they could be giving very poor services, they could be failing to deliver services, and they were still getting performance bonuses. So this is an attempt to make sure that the lessons learned become part of our statutes and become part of the culture. It provides a framework without a lot of additional burden, without creating new departments, without creating new reports, to say, you know, we've got someplace now that we can look to hold people accountable when contracting goes bad.